This video is a replay of a trade I took today. Now, it probably goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. I am not a financial advisor, and trading entails risk. Just because I got these results today doesn't mean that I can get these every day, nor that you can. Remember, the entire premise of the investing project and the $1 million experiment is that I am not an expert, and yet I am learning how to do this. So for heaven's sake, don't just blindly copy me. Instead, find a mentor, someone who is an expert, and join their community. Pay for their mentorship. This approach has worked very well for me, and it likely will for you too. So use this video partly as education and partly as inspiration. After all, if I can learn this, you can too. All right, so the trades today weren't the greatest. I'm just coming off of two back-to-back days where news bars took me out for significant losses. I was looking today to try to make some of that back. And of course, whenever you go into something, it seems, with the idea that I need to get back or I need to recover the losses from a previous day, that usually is not a good recipe. That ends up being an invitation for yet another loss, which is exactly what happened today. In fact, it was the bigger loss of the bunch. So I took a long position on the Russell, on the M2K, and then about 10 minutes later, I took a long position on the ES, with the idea that these had it spiked in the morning and then it pulled back a fair bit. Now, really, the great big spike in the morning with a huge pullback, that's not really a bullish sign. You know, this giant wick at the top here, that's not a great sign. And nevertheless, I ignored that, thought I knew better, and went into these two trades anyway. And it wasn't really a great idea. It seemed like a good idea at the time, like all things of that sort. So I'm going to go ahead and play this. I get into the Russell trade at about 6:43, and actually I think it's 15 minutes later that I got into the MES trade. I've got them both here anyway, just because I don't want to miss them. But I'll let this play back at full speed, and we can see what happened here. For the Russell trade, I needed to take a bit more risk. I had 6 contracts on. I expanded this to 114 handles of risk, which is a fair bit. But anyway, I let that go, and we'll see how this unfolds. And for the ES trade, when I do eventually get into it, I ended up with fairly substantial amount of risk. I ended up having to take 25 points of risk way down, pulling stop way down here. This really exposed me at the same time to more risk than I was really prepared to handle. That's not a good recipe either. Really, if I was going to take somewhat sketchy trades, what I really need to do, risk aside, is I needed to scale down, size down. So instead of taking 6 contracts on the Russell here, on the Russell, I probably should have reduced that to 2 because it was kind of sketchy. In fact, I probably should just skip that trade altogether. Ditto probably for the ES, although this is more of the benefit of hindsight. I'm just looking now at the Russell. Nothing about this looks bullish. It just looks like it's not good. Whereas this one, you know, I could see getting into that on the idea that it was heading back up. It was stronger if you look at the daily, whereas the Russell seems like it's sort of peaked and it's heading downward. Anyway, long story short, this is with the benefit of hindsight, and I recognized, yep, you know what, I just got taken out with the Russell here. It'll come down in a second and stop me out. And then the ES by this point, 6:58. Actually, it shows me in it, but truthfully, I wasn't actually in it until 6:58. So it's in about 4 minutes from now. Doesn't really make much difference. The fact is, at some point, it headed up there and triggered my sell, or my buy rather. So I'm going to let this continue, and we can just relive the moment. But you know, the takeaway lesson here is these weren't high probability, great looking setups. And what I've discovered that I've been doing is usually when I start the month and I'm wanting to make sure I hit the target for the $1 million experiment, I'm a bit more conservative in what trades I put on. I tend to wait for the more conservative, the more high quality trades. And that's a good idea because in fact, in order to meet my target, I only need to get a net total of 2 2-to-1 risk reward to risk ratio trades in an entire month. If I get a net 2 of those, I meet my target. So I can afford to be choosy. But when I get into the latter half, once I've made my target and I start playing with the alternate account, I tend to take slightly more risky trades. And I don't mean to do it. It's just that I feel like the pressure's off. I've met my target, and now I can do it. But if I'm going to do that, I really need to scale size down to reflect how much confidence I have in any given trade. And I think that's the real takeaway for me here. Anyway, you can see that I've been stopped out of the Russell. So that was for the full, what was it, $420 loss. And in the meantime, we've got the MES, the S&P trade, continuing along. It's going to do the same thing. It's going to take me out as well. And it just wasn't ready. You look at the YM. The YM is happily going up, but no, I chose the I chose the Russell that has been in a downtrend. So not brilliant from the perspective of what I've chose to trade. And in fact, really, none of these looked like great setups. And of course, I'm saying this in retrospect. At the time, I didn't think they looked like great setups either. But they also looked like, well, I could see how they could maybe be legit, even though they were sketchy. And so, not great, all things considered. Now, this one took a little longer to play out, but it ended up, as I said, taking me out as well. And it ended up with, what was that? I guess it was a 25. I think I ended up changing this to 23 handles of risk, and it took me out for the full, it's a $345 loss. There we go. So it ended up with a full $765 net loss for the day. And, I kind of deserve it for choosing sketchy trades and for not sizing appropriately. So not great, but there you have it. Three substantial negative days in a row. Not happy about that.